What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
You made a comment about something as we were just visiting at the very beginning. It talked about building a business, entrepreneurial businesses or whatever. What I wrote down was it's a leverage for social change. Tell me what I intentionally didn't ask you questions about that, but I was intrigued by that thought.
Yeah.
What were you referring to?
So organizations, generally, people come together and they do things. They change the environments in which they work, nonprofits and for-profit companies. And big companies, especially companies that grow really fast, which is startups typically, right? They change the world in pretty drastic ways very quickly. And so businesses change, like they're levers for social change, whether we want them to be or not. And so if we're unintentional about that change, it can be very negative. Or we're just rolling the dice and hoping that maybe the world's a better place for having started this business. But actually being intentional about that change is really important. And so that's one of the lessons in Hangry, where I talk about, when I started the business, I just wanted to pay off my school debt from MIT. But as the company grew, my goals got bigger. And one of the things that I say towards the end of the journey is, I wish I had known that I was going to have 70,000 restaurants that were depending on my business for really for their livelihood. And I wish I had set the goals that we ended up with in the business about helping independent restaurants and leveling the playing field against big chains. I wish I had known that on day one. Like if I had been intentional all the way back in day one, it would have been certainly financially just as successful of a business, but it would have also been better for those restaurants if I had just been thinking about it from the start line. And so this is sort of my encouragement to people who are entrepreneurs or business leaders or at whatever stage in their career they're at. Being intentional early helps a lot in terms of creating a fulfilling and satisfying journey for yourself and for the people around you.
Yeah, because if it's, I just got through watching a Simon Sinek TED Talk where he talks about the importance of why. The three circles that he refers to, and what you're describing is the why behind GrubHub was not getting pizza on time.
Yeah, I use so you mentioned I went to MIT. One of the things I do is I interview students for that prospective students. And the one question that I ask is, here's the mission statement for the university. Why does that appeal to you? And then I'll always get some sort of like answer that was rehearsed. And then I ask, well, so why do you think that? And so there's this concept called 5 whys, which was sort of popularized by the Toyota production method, where you just keep asking why. And eventually you get down to something axiomatic, like because it's good to help people, or because it's my religion, or because it's morally right, or because I want to be wealthy, right? Like there's usually something where there's no why behind it. It's just a belief.
That's right.
And I think it's important in our daily lives, in our daily work lives, that we understand how the activity that we're doing relates to not only the company mission or the company values wherever we work or whatever business we lead, if we happen to lead business, but also like for our lives generally, like is the activity that I'm doing today line up with my goals for a year from now and for my lifetime? And I think it's really easy to not think about that and just get stuck in inertia. I've certainly gotten stuck there before. And so the book is an encouragement to sort of make that an annual, but even a daily practice, to just keep asking that question. And, do the activities that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, do they line up with who I want to be?
Yeah, and I think it's a key aspect of it, who I want to be, because if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that central part of it. This is the guy, it's not Pavlov, that's the guy with the dogs and the saliva, but Maslow had his hierarchy of needs, and it talks about going from sort of physical needs being met. When it gets into that mid level of it, I spent over 25 years in the executive search industry helping companies to hire. And we find out the biggest reason for turnover is when people are in that middle section or whatever, and they don't get a sense of value out of what they do. Either it's not being coming from a leader down, but a lot of times it has to do with it. They're not getting a sense of value for themselves out of the meaning of what I'm involved with. And the closer they can get to that, that's really where true engagement comes from. And when I think about your journey, both with GrubHub and with what you're trying to do with Fixer right now, what do you do to make sure that people are engaged with the mission, with the why behind your organization, the mission that you're on?
Yeah, so we at the company at Fixer, and this, we also did this at GrubHub, about a year into the founding the business, I stopped and got everybody together, and we defined what our core values were going to be in our mission statement. And so it wasn't just me proclaiming it, it was us as a group deciding what things we were going to hold as valuable. And one of the things I do now is I just try to make sure that people understand, okay, well, this is the mission statement and the mission statement of the company. And these are the goals, this is our 2023 goal. We're going through this process right now, right? And I just want you to take a moment and think about what your goals are for your life and how they're different, obviously, from the company's goals. But I want you to understand how they're related. And if they're not, this is not maybe the best place for you, right? If you just want to get rich and we're trying to, increase the diversity and skill of tradespeople in the communities we serve, there's a mismatch right there. There's a misalignment. And so the first thing is just encouraging people to know themselves, which I don't want to be extra paternalistic about this. People can do that on their own or not. But ultimately, then that relates, if you understand how that relates to what the company is trying to do, it just makes the translation of, okay, well, the company says blah, blah, blah about what we're trying to accomplish, but it makes it more personal, right? And then there's an element of, every year the goals for the company should match the overall overarching mission statement for the company. And then each department should have goals for the year that are obvious how they ladder up from the department goals to the company goals. And then each individual has goals and how those ladder up to the department. And the more individual the goals get, the more it's important for that person to set those goals for themselves. And so that's the strategy we use, and we talk about the stuff fairly frequently and how things are lining up. And then we state our core values and our mission statement at the start of every meeting, which is it's a pretty mechanical way to just make sure people know what the values are of the company, because you can say it 7 times and still only 80% of people will know what the values are.
Right.
And so you have to repeat yourself frequently. But that's the idea behind it. We did that at GrubHub. It worked really well. We're doing it at Fixer. But it's just also forget the success of the company for a moment. We don't all work together for lifetimes at a time. We're together, you're with your coworkers for 1, 2, 5, maybe 10 years. And during that time, hopefully everybody, when they sort of get off that train, they're in a better place than when they got on it together. And so part of that is just making sure that in the present, in the moment, people's values are being, their goals and their values are being met with what the activity of the company or the organization is doing.
It's huge, because I say this frequently, is we're told, psychologists tell us we're not supposed to get a sense of self-worth out of what we do, right? However, we're human beings. And since we're human beings, we have a tendency to get our sense of self-worth out of what we do. And so the more that somebody's connected to whatever that value is, whatever their value system is internally, which takes some reflection, but also takes the role, I think, of a leader, was finding ways to bring clarity for people to understand, in your role, this is the value you bring to our organization. This is the value you bring into the role you have.
Yeah.
I love what you're talking about, is that you hit hard on this. What I love about your mission is your role as a leader. What I'm hearing is the importance of bringing clarity to not just the mission of the organization, but it's to find out, clarity around somebody's understanding of how they plug in, clarity about who they are, clarity. You're like the clarity police, the clarity leader is what I'm hearing you say that you take on.
Yeah. When I started GrubHub, I was doing everything myself. It was just me. I was doing the sales. I was doing the software development. I was the janitor. I did graphic design. I did everything. I did marketing, right? And so you do everything. But then by the time of the IPO, I had 2,500 people reporting to me, and I did nothing. Right? I did no actual work. And so there's a transition that happens from the pure executor, the pure individual contributor, to the pure executive leader who does nothing. But in the latter stages, the thing that you do as a CEO, you actually also have to do when you're an individual contributor. And as a pure CEO or pure executive, really only have 3 jobs. One is to make sure that the goals of the organization or the individual or the department or whatever, goals are clear. So clarity, like you said, be the clarity police. Sure. Okay. I'll buy that. I'll bite that. It sounds good. That's number 1. Number 2 is make sure you hired the right people and you have the right people in place. And number 3 is make sure that they have the resources they need. No part of that is micromanagement. Nothing. Nothing in there. Set the goals, make sure people have resources, make sure they're the right person. Walk away. Stand back.
Turn them loose. Take the hands off the wheel.
Yeah. And if they're not succeeding, it's either because the goal isn't clear. Usually it's because the goal isn't clear, or they have obstacles in their way, or they don't have the resources. Very rarely it's the case that it's the wrong person.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The key aspect of it then. So I'm intrigued by your journey, the trailblazing that you've done. Is there anything that you'd want to leave with us as a final note about Hangry? Because you're right, it's more than just a startup journey. It's about a journey of moving to whatever your next step is, which is my big thing I'm talking about. My next book is coming out. It's called Move the Ball. It's what's the next step. And so what have we not talked about that you want to kind of leave anybody who's listening to this or watching this with?
Yeah, the book is really about the personal journey, the personal and emotional journey that you go through in the process of creating something from nothing. And it's hard. It's really hard to create something from nothing. And that's okay. Hard things drive satisfaction and fulfillment and joy as you complete them, as you pull them off, even as you hit obstacles and have to backtrack and make mistakes. Like during all of that, it still can be satisfying if you have a goal in mind and you kind of keep at it. And so I talk a lot about that through the book, that the joys of it, and then also the frustrations and pitfalls at time. And then at some point later on in the book, I talk about what happens when my personal goals start to diverge from where the company is inevitably headed. And so I quit. I leave. I leave because I can no longer satisfy my personal goals. And I go on this. I ride into the sense that I literally ride a bicycle from Virginia to Oregon. And then I almost quit that too because my goals changed during the middle of the bike trip. But I don't. I stick with it. There's a spoiler alert there, but. I think it can be really easy to sugarcoat the challenge associated with success. And it also can be easy for us to try and pretend like the hard things, we should minimize them. But actually, it is hard, but hard can sometimes be fun. And so that's really the one of the big messages behind, or the big ideas in the book. And hopefully, I think it's pretty funny. Some people have told me it is. I sort of make fun of myself quite a bit in the book. So check it out if you can. It's on Audible and Amazon as well.
Super. Well, great. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I will tell you that there's an important message that you have for all of us, Mike, and that we don't get stronger. We don't grow and develop by taking the easier path. We only grow and develop by putting actually more pressure, more tension on ourselves. They've shown that heart attacks increase with people whenever their stress levels go down because they're trying to figure things out. But if stress is too much, of course, that's the other end of it. But it's having enough stress in front of you to push into is really where growth and development steps going forward. So thanks for creating a roadmap for us.
Thank you. I appreciate having me on.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, If I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.